This video walks you through the idea of a carbon offset SWOT analysis and how the climatographers can help you carry out such an analysis and why you might want to have us do that with you. A SWOT analysis, as you probably know, refers to strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's very much called for in today's world of carbon offsets, where there's considerable brand risk, liability risk, and other potential risks if you end up doing offsets that might come back to bite you later on. And this presentation was originally done as a slide deck. And you can, if you're seeing just a video of this, you can go to offsetswot.climatesites.net and you'll see the actual deck there, and you can get a physical copy of the deck if you would like. So a very quick carbon offsets history. When carbon offsets first got started in 1988, no one could have imagined that the voluntary offset market in particular would be seen as a critical part of the solution to climate change in 2022. And when I was director of global consulting for the carbon market firm of EcoSecurities in 2008, no one would have imagined that all of the debates going on around carbon offsets at the time would remain relevant in 2022, that we'd still be talking about exactly the same thing. And today, millions of dollars are being spent by companies on carbon offset portfolios that aren't mitigating climate change, but that probably are contributing to their brand and potentially even liability risk. And a lot of this does come back to this problem of willful blindness that Margaret Heffernan talks about in her 2011 book. And it's one of the best climate quotes ever, that in failing to address climate change, all the forces of willful blindness come together like synchronized swimmers in a spectacular water ballet. So what is a carbon offset SWOT? There are lots of variables that people use, that companies use to decide which carbon offsets to buy. And a lot of those have to do with cost, co-benefits, avoidance versus removals, geography, and technology choice. But the climate change mitigation benefit of a carbon offset comes down to three fundamental variables: additionality, permanence, and lack of leakage. The problem is that none of these three criteria can be tested for in the conventional sense. You're dealing with a forecast of the future. You're dealing with a counterfactual baseline. There is no way to test for these things in advance. And what that has led to is a lot of offset approval processes, and a lot of offset snake oil has found its way into offset markets. So the idea of an offset or an offset portfolio SWOT is to inform a company how confident it can be in the ability of proposed or existing offsets to deliver the intended climate change benefit. In parallel, carrying out a SWOT can help protect the company from greenwashing charges, as well as brand and potentially even liability risks. SWOTs are particularly important, and this cartoon is great at helping explain this. You've probably seen it before. Yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders. And that cartoon sort of points to the inherent contradiction between trying to minimize the cost of offsets and minimize the costs of compliance with climate change policies and the need to accomplish climate change benefit through carbon offsets. You can't maximize for both of those variables at the same time. And so companies face a challenge in wanting to advance short-term business interests while protecting society's long-term climate future. The first of these objectives, in terms of short-term business interests, has historically been accomplished by maximizing reliance on low-cost and unfortunately low-quality carbon offsets and renewable energy certificates, or RECs. The second of those objectives would be advanced by a reduction in offset reliance, much more intensive due diligence into purchasing offsets, and a substantially higher willingness to pay for offsets and for renewable energy. And as I mentioned already, these two objectives cannot be simultaneously maximized for, and an offset SWOT is key to helping companies understand the trade-offs that are involved and in order to make the right decision for them. So a couple details of how we do this and make it as simple as possible. Quite a while ago, the Climatographers developed a carbon offset scoring system focused on those three critical variables of additionality, permanence, and leakage. And the scoring system uses both offset expertise and a very innovative inverse weighting algorithm to come up with a score that can apply to an individual offset or a portfolio between 1 and 1,000. And the score doesn't tell you whether you should or should not buy a particular offset. That is a risk-based judgment for company decision makers. What the score does do is provide advanced due diligence into the potential risks associated with an offset purchase or that already exist in your offset portfolio so that company decision making is informed and risk aware. Are you buying a 245 out of 1,000 offset? Are you buying a 725 out of 1,000 offset? It's a very easy way of understanding what you're buying. And a SWOT can be as straightforward as scoring an individual project, or it can involve a portfolio, or it can be applied more broadly to the development of offset strategies in the larger context of corporate climate risk management. The next 3 slides lay out why you might want to work with me and with the Climatographers on your offset SWOTs and your offset due diligence. And I'm certainly not going to go through these 3 slides in detail. You can go through them on your own at offsetswot.climatesites.net, where you can see the full deck. But I did work on the first carbon offset 35 years ago, have been involved in the field ever since. We started building for clients the first carbon offset portfolios. We developed some of the first analytical tools for helping companies get their heads around carbon markets and carbon offsets. We took the first company climate neutral. So we've been doing a lot of work in this space over the years, and all of this can apply to the idea of carrying out offset due diligence or offset SWOTs. We also have the benefit of the climate web, which is basically a collective intelligence for climate change. We've been building the climate web for more than a decade. The carbon offsets portion of the climate web represents thousands of hours of knowledge curation, and pretty much any topic relevant to carbon offset strategies and SWOTs is covered in depth in the climate web. So if you'd like to discuss offset SWOTs with us, here's our contact information. You can take a look at this deck in more detail at offsetswot.climatesites.net. You can see a bigger deck on the climate web at climatewebdeck.climatesites.net and get a better sense of how carbon offsets are covered in the climate web at offsetsdeck.climatesites.net. At any of those, you'll see an opportunity to join the Climate Web Club if you have any interest in climate change and knowledge management in carbon offsets. Sign up to stay informed on a lot of our work in this space. And thanks for watching.